Good evening. Welcome to the Groseal Township Community Recreation Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. Let's see, I need an approval for tonight's agenda. Are there any changes, any additions, deletions, anything like that? Otherwise, I need a motion to approve.
Motion made.
Bill, second please. Support. Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, the approval of the minutes from the meeting on December 16th, 2010. Any changes, additions, deletions? If not, motion to approve, please. Leah, second, please.
Second.
Ethel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Public comment. 3-minute limit on a non-agenda item. Is there anybody from the public not have anything to, or has something to say not regarding the public hearing on the master plan? Okay. Moving on. Okay, now we're going to begin the public hearing. This is for the Groseal Township Parks and Recreation Master Plan. What we're going to do is basically go through the process of how we ended up here tonight. Sharon Hood's going to give us a presentation from LSL Planning, and it's been just a little bit over a year. We hopefully get this all wrapped up to the board for final approval. Introduce Sharon Hood, please.
Thank you. I'm Sharon from LSL Planning, and I have here tonight with me Brian Borden and Mark Russell from Russell Designs. The three of us, I think, collectively have helped prepare the Parks and Rec Master Plan that you guys have before you, and tonight is really one of the final steps in the process of adopting the plan, getting it ready to send to the state for approval, and then after that, hopefully we'll start to get some grant monies as a result of the plan that we just developed. So without any delay, I'll just move right on into the purpose of our public hearing, as I said, is to review the draft, talk about the process that we took to arrive at the version that we have here, talk about the concept plans that we prepared and the goals for the next 5 years, and then receive public comments. So we're going to hold a public hearing and see if anyone has any questions. And then we're looking tonight for an action from the committee about their recommendation on the draft. And I just want to let you know now, so that as we go through, you can think about if there are, minor changes or revisions that you think need to be made. I think Tim mentioned that we might want to add reference to the Safe Routes to School grant in the grants list. Things like that, we can add still to the plan tonight, even if you do choose to endorse it. So you can endorse it with some minor edits if you need to. So just keep that in mind as we go through. So just a brief recap of where we've been. Walt mentioned we've been working on this for quite a while. I'll talk briefly about the schedule in a second, but really what we wanted to do was take a look at, our existing resources. We're all well aware of the parks that we have here, but we want to see where we can improve them. So the township did hold some focus group meetings and 2 park-specific workshops to discuss Water's Edge and community or Centennial Farm. Thank you. And then once we conducted those hearings, the workshops and the meetings, we did come up with a list or a summary of all the public comment that we received. I think you guys have seen that in the past. And then we established some action items and some tasks that we want to complete in the next 5 years based on that public input. And I want to make sure that you guys keep in mind that that really is the sort of the driving force of this plan, is the comments that we received through those public workshops and at the meetings. And I think that we've really, the township's done a pretty good job of wrapping into this plan most of the comments that we received. Here on the screen is a snapshot of the schedule that we've undertaken to complete this update. And as Walt mentioned, it was a while ago when we started. And we had a little bit of a delay in the summer when I think the township wanted to have a little bit more input. You guys had another meeting to review the draft. So I think the township's done a very good job, very thorough job. We had a good long time to finish the plan before the current plan expired. We took advantage of that and talked to as many people as we could. So we have a really comprehensive public involvement aspect of this project. And the purpose of the plan is to, obviously, as I said, talk about those resources that we have, talk about what things we can do to improve those parks and facilities to meet the needs of even more of our residents, if possible, and then set forth a 5-year plan for making those improvements. And then really ultimately what we'd like to do is make sure that we meet the state guidelines so that we will get some grant money as a result of this plan. Looking really quickly at our inventory here in Grosse Ile, we have about 12 parks in the community, over 1,000 acres. Those are kind of range between, parks that are owned by the township, but also those that are owned, the marshes and the other natural preserves in the area. You do have a decent bike path established, so you have some pretty good range of facilities. So you have those linear parks, but you also have the destinations where people can go to play and play ball or just enjoy nature. Talking about the population, I think we discussed this at the workshops, and you'll see a lot of the information here talks about the 2000 data. I just want to point out that we did in the plan itself, and the inventory that we created is based on the 2009 estimates of population from SEMCOG. So while this may look a little outdated, the inventory that we, or I guess the analysis that we did, is based on the most current information that we had when we did that analysis. So here is just sort of a breakdown of the population in the community, and really what this does is give you an idea of who are the people you're trying to serve here. So if we have an aging population, meaning more people are getting older and we're having less younger children in the community, well, then we need to think about some of our senior programming and the recreation opportunities we provide to those folks. So really what we're seeing in Grosse Ile is that the largest category is about 35 to 64 years of age. It's a pretty broad range, but those are, obviously are mature adults. And a lot of those people will be graduating, or have now in 2010, since this data is 10 years old, graduated into a higher age bracket. So we're looking at a little bit more seniors in the community. So I think it's really timely that we're starting to look at bike paths and trails and ways that they can get from A to B without actually having to drive, because that may not be an option for them in the future. So taking a look quickly at our parks, one of the things that we do to satisfy the state requirements is we look at what the state's recommended guidelines for parks and recreation facilities. So the state has, admittedly, they're a bit old. I think they were developed in the 70s, but they did establish sort of a ratio for every 1,000 people in the community. You should have X number of acres of parks, or this many volleyball courts or basketball courts. So we took a look at those recommended guidelines, and here this table shows what that revealed. It talks about the total acreage of parks that are categorized as like a mini park, which is really just sort of like your little pocket park in the neighborhood, to your neighborhood park, which might actually get some kids gathering to play ball, to the community parks, which you have, the whole community will get to, which are sort of our three main, the Centennial Farm Airport and Water's Edge. And then you have the regional parks, which draw from a larger area. Here shows what the analysis revealed, and generally speaking, the township is doing pretty good. You guys have a decent amount of parkland for the needs that the state suggests. So really, I think the goal here is to maximize the use of the parks and the facilities that we already have. So looking at those facilities, taking the same approach, we looked at the state's guidelines for, football fields and basketball courts and tennis courts. And in all, it appears that the township's doing quite well in satisfying those needs as well. The only slight deficiency that we saw was maybe a needed additional volleyball court, which I think we did talk about as we go through the project. Just a brief overview. Forgive me, my formatting didn't work out very well here. But this is intended to show you what the state requires in public input versus what the township actually completed. And I just wanted to point that out to you because the state, you know, a lot of communities will just meet the bare minimum to get the state's endorsement, but I really think it's a testament to the effort that the township made that we only had to provide 2 means of input and we provided over 7, and that includes some of the meetings that you guys have had in the past where obviously people are welcome to come and give their comment. We had a public hearing that will be held tonight. We had our 4 focus group meetings, and under that, the second heading here were the 4 focus groups. So we met with the environmental and outdoor interests, art, music, and recreation, community involvement, and athletic groups. And then the following night, we had 2 workshops. We had one on the Water's Edge Park and one on Centennial Farm. And then, as you guys know, we've come to you a couple of times to discuss the plan. I know in October was sort of our the high points where we were there, but I know you guys have also discussed it at some of your regular meetings as well. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's that really you guys have done above and beyond what's required by the state. These were the participants that attended our workshops. So I think it's important to show that we had a pretty broad range of input and people that did attend. Well, I think you guys have seen this list before. These were the goals that emerged. Really, I wouldn't say emerged because they really didn't change much from the last plan. These are your general goals. And I think I've said this before, but really they are very general. They're not very specific, which is why they didn't change, because they're still relevant, of course. We certainly still want to meet the needs of all the residents. We want to design our facilities so that they look nice and they respect the environment, and we want to certainly cooperate with others so we're not duplicating our efforts or being inefficient, protecting our natural resources, and then using recreation as a way to draw people together and create sort of a sense of pride here in the township, which I think really has already occurred. But one of the things that we did find, originally we had intended to sort of focus our efforts on Centennial Farm and Water's Edge, but as the project went on, we realized that really the bike paths and trails are becoming just as important, and so we did incorporate a little bit more discussion of bike paths in the plan. We looked to the bike path subcommittee to help us prioritize what those segments should be, but I think there's a more comprehensive list than what's on this page that's in the plan. But I think it's important to note that, you know, these bike paths are really the township's way of reaching out to other people that may or may not live right nearby a park. So these kind of facilities are really the best way for you guys to improve your system without having to buy costly land. You know, you're working within the existing road right-of-way for the most part. So it's kind of a nice way to continue to improve without having to really spend a lot of money. Moving on now into some of our park-specific recommendations. We did look at the airport park, and I think really you're not seeing a lot of changes here, but we wanted to update the map that was in the previous plan because we know that some of the things that were developed were a little bit different than what the layout suggested in the previous map. So this really just shows the existing layout of the ball fields, and I think the 3 new football fields. There's 1 additional soccer field in there, and then we're looking at trying to make pathway and trail connections to the surrounding properties and existing systems that are already there. So these are sort of the things that we had in mind. One of the things we talked about was providing a concession room. You know, a lot of the things that people want are buildings at these parks. They want to have concession space or a place where they can get shelter from the storm or, you know, get some shade. So that's a big thing. I think a lot of people were asking for really at that, and I think we also got that at Water's Edge as well. So this is sort of our quick list of the improvements that we're calling for at Airport Park. Obviously, it's a athletic park. So we're looking more so at improving things for those ball field conditions. Looking at Water's Edge, and I'm going to just invite Mark, if he has any comments to add, feel free to jump in here, because Mark was the one who actually drew the Water's Edge and the Centennial Farm plans. And Water's Edge is much the same. It really didn't change drastically. We did make some corrections and updates, and we have modified the plan. But generally speaking, you know what Water's Edge is. It's a golfing and a marina. So that's generally continuing to be the theme. But I think one of the things that the residents expressed was a desire to see everybody welcome at all of the parks. And so that's sort of where we're headed with Water's Edge. One of the big changes you'll see that was removed from the previous plan was the outlook that was out off of the boardwalk there. I think that was sort of a cost-effective measure. We want to focus on a little bit more meaningful improvements that will, I guess, draw some more people. I think one of the things we're looking at is providing some parking, accessible parking, and a little bit better organized parking for Water's Edge. Obviously promoting it for general use. So I know Tim is always looking at additional improvements that they can make to serve other people. We're talking, there's the basketball court and the pool and the volleyball court out there. So it does get some general use, and I think that's part of what the rec department wants to keep doing there. We also heard that there were some people felt that some more transient docks might be needed at Water's Edge, so that's sort of a phased approach that we're looking at to maybe accomplish that. And then general golf course maintenance. Everybody suggested that there were a few sand traps needed to be cleaned and reorganized, and so those items certainly made it onto the list as well. Anything to add? All right. Moving on to the Centennial Farm, and this was the end result of quite a bit of discussion, as I'm sure some of you might know. But generally speaking, Centennial Farm is just a wonderful jewel that we want to see protected and cherished, really. And so what we want to make sure is we're respecting the integrity of the park that's there now and the uses that are there now, but still, as the residents expressed, inviting everybody to use the park. And so one of the things that we saw for Community Farm was some people, well, first of all, people love the dog park there. That was one of the things we heard over and over, that everybody really appreciated having that facility there. But some people felt like maybe it could be reorganized, or that there should be a small dog and a large dog area. So we did kind of reorganize the dog park area, put it over closer to the animal shelter part of the park, which just kind of made some logical sense. And then looking at the area that was the dog park, perhaps becoming a community garden. That was another thing that we did hear from a lot of the residents. Would like to see some homage to agriculture or something at the farm, because it is a farm park. So a lot of people wanted to see that, the history of the farm and the agricultural theme embraced there. So that was one of the things we did try to accomplish with the plan. But the other was, I think you guys have talked in the past about the trails and extending the trails into the woods over there. So we talked about if that's something that the township does try to implement in the future, that what we want to see are some trailhead signage and some facilities that encourage people to keep it clean and tidy through there. And then some of the things that we talked about were, how are we going to maintain our historic structures? It's kind of a challenge, but it is a goal that we have for the Centennial Farm. And I know that the fire chief was at the workshops that we had, and he was a big proponent on protecting those buildings. So that's kind of in a nutshell, those are the high points of the plan. Obviously, you all have seen a copy of it. If there's anything you want, I have all the specific public input comments. I've saved them later on, so if anybody wants to take a look at those, we can. But really what we're here to do is just get some feedback, see if anybody has any questions or concerns, and then hopefully move on to endorsing the plan. You guys have anything to add? All right, come on.
I just wanted to add one quick point. Just
Shock.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Follow me.
Just to
and-
make sure everybody's on the same page. Wow. Sorry about that, guys. I'm electric. That the farm plan, sub-area plan you see on the screen has been updated. The plan in your draft plan, the plan that was posted, the plan that Tim had available in his office for review, that is the current proposal at this point. So there are some changes in that plan that have been incorporated as a result of input from Tim and the commission, as well as the stakeholders at the farm. So I just want to make sure.
Let me see if I have that, because I intended to put the correct one in
It is.
there.
No, the one on the
Oh, is
screen
that
the
the-
correct
That
one.
was the correct
Okay.
one. That was the updated one.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had the right
This,
one.
right,
Okay.
the one in.
In the
actual-
plan is outdated.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Woo,
Thanks,
threw
Brian.
me off.
All right, do we have any questions from the commissioners? Uta.
Oh, if Mike wants to go first?
It doesn't matter to me. Uta, Bill, whoever wants to
Bill.
go.
Tell me if you want a
Just a
particular drawing up or
Just a
something.
quick question, yeah, when you get that drawing back up there on the Centennial Farm, area 24 is what?
That would be the community garden.
That's what I thought, okay, good, thanks.
Sharon, if you can put up the map of the Water's Edge site plan? I just noticed, because I haven't studied it, but there is a parking set up maybe by the driving range, and I don't know, we have one board member here, Peter, but I think that in the past, the board had wanted not to have parking on that side. I don't know where that notion came from. Maybe Walt or you can, maybe there was a meeting where it came up that we needed to have parking on the south side at Water's Edge.
I can address that with Mark Russell with Russell Design. The parking that was eliminated was the parking that was the notion of a boat storage area that was north of this, or excuse me, that was west of the
South of Bellevue.
south of Bellevue. Yeah. So, but south of Bellevue, but east of what you see here, the parking spaces that are there basically just cater to the driving range. That's it. Yeah.
Is that something that came out of our meetings or study group? I know we had a Water's Edge subcommittee.
Right, for this particular one, with this specific plan idea, a lot of people did not like the parking idea at all from the old previous plan. Over there where the, what do you call it, the chipping area, right?
Yeah, which is to the west of what's shown on your plan.
So do we need, did the subcommittee decide that we needed 15 parking spaces at the driving range, that it's in here?
I'm thinking we eliminated all parking on that side. That's what I
thought.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
correct that.
unless there's some overriding purpose,
Well,
again,
the only
with the
reason that I would
DNR.
recommend having a few spaces there is that it provides accessibility to the driving range, so that one isn't expected to walk across Bellevue.
And we did go from a lot, what was it, like 54 or
Oh,
something?
no, yeah, there were like 54 boats that could be stored to the west of this between West River and the driving range itself.
And I think Mark's perspective is looking at it as being a concept plan, that it's there in case we do need it, but it's not necessarily the feedback we got.
That's right.
Not want it.
But the good thing about it, what it does is going forward with the DNR for grants, it provides the notion of accessibility, which is a big hot button right now for granting, and to provide accessibility to a driving range, which is not oftentimes thought of as somebody with a disability.
Well, and I agree, but what, and I'll represent that to the board members that aren't here.
Okay.
Because I know that was a sticking point when we initially talked about the previous conceptual plan, not last spring, but the spring before. And so I just don't want that to become a sticking point.
Yeah, I think that would be good, Uta, and because I think the big sticking point was that it was impacting one of the holes, and there were some modifications to the golf course had we gone forward with the boat storage.
Correct.
Okay, one other thing that you're maybe not taking into consideration, since I'm really familiar with the golf course, if you were to put that parking where you have it,
Yes?
you're going to limit the distance of the driving range to the end of the range,
Okay.
which will impact balls landing on the green. We have a lot of trouble with that now. The people, the big shooters, are overdriving
gonna
the
say it's
mound,
not
and
me.
they're ending up with a lot of balls in the rough.
Sure.
But if you take up that area, which is considerable, you'll end up with balls being on the green and past the green on number 8.
Well, if you can just embrace the fact that this is just a conceptual plan.
Sure.
And certainly going forward, if we're going to develop this in much more detail, there'll be a topographic study, there'll be a great deal of information and public comment points at that.
And you,
Okay, I just
you
wanted
might
to-
see,
Yeah,
even if you,
understood, and I
if you-
appreciate that.
You might even see that it would take, it would just parallel the road. I mean, you could put it in any fashion or configuration.
And there might only be 3 spaces there.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think, if I can back up a little bit and just remind everybody, I mean, the purpose of the plan really is just to give us some general direction, but not to hold your feet to anything. So, I mean, there's nothing that ties you to something specific on any of these drawings. But the idea is, as Mark said, to sort of show the state, these are the things we're thinking about, and we do care about accessibility, and we do care about providing those resources. So that does speak. In fact, just recently I worked with a community that got a grant, and they were required to go and modify their application to show that they were going to provide accessibility and connections that way. So it was a barrier for them to even get money. So I think it is important to keep some of those things in, and just remember, if you never choose to implement them, you're no worse for
And
wear.
it
But if
goes
you
the
did
same
want
way.
to, it wouldn't be in there, and you'd be.
And it goes the same way if something new comes up, like all of a sudden a bocce ball court or something like that, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
it's something that we never thought about, it can be implemented in here, just the same that if something's in here, it doesn't have to be implemented.
That's right.
Right, 'cause the grant will be accompanied by a drawing that's of much greater detail than 100 square.
All right. Uta?
Yeah, I think, obviously, Sharon, you know this inside and out, but I think what happens a lot in communities like ours and ours is that when people see the plan, they do take it as more literal than
No, you're right.
conceptual. And so we're always having to restate that claim. What might help is if we simply added the wording potential parking or optional. I like
Yeah,
that, optional. And just to show again that it's conceptual, not that it's going to happen.
I mean, we start doing that, we can put that in a lot of things, even
Well-
the transient docks, I mean.
Okay,
you know,
but,
right?
but
No?
Walt, because
Right,
this
okay.
was a sticking point in the past, I just don't want to, what Sharon said, we probably say that before every meeting, and we still
Right.
get people assuming that it's, if it's in the plan, it's going to happen.
But going on with that thing, everyone looks at those 42 transit docks saying, why do we need that? I
Right.
think you better put optional on that one, because
Right.
that's another big one.
Well, here's what we were just discussing, is that perhaps what we can do, instead of trying to do just that and talking about each particular item, we can put just a general notation on our plan saying, these plans represent a conceptual,
Thank you.
representation or something.
Okay,
Which you don't have.
But I mean, if
Right.
we could say, the actual, projects implemented may or may not be exactly
Right.
as shown, or
Right,
could
but
be
Uta's point
modified,
was
right.
precise, so those were the hot ones, look at the parking, look at the transient docks, I mean, we
Right.
had to flat out remove
Right.
that observation point that.
right.
Right.
And the same is true of all of our sites, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And being a former English teacher, the conceptual means a lot to planners and to people that see it a lot. But again, in some instances, it doesn't say, oh, well, it's conceptual. People think of, it's a concept, yes, but it's a concept we're going to pursue.
Right.
So I've become more cautious, I guess, in those kind of things. On the airport recreation area plan, I noticed that, we have a sled hill, and it's identified as a sledding hill. And at Monday night's board meeting, Treasurer Van Ost pointed out that in the summertime, he actually sees people on there doing step workouts and running up and down the hill and using it as a practice workout facility. So I'm wondering if there's potential, just adding to that it's a four-season site, that people use it all year round, not just for sledding, might make it look like there's more to offer at that particular site, not just that it's for a winter
Are
sledding.
you suggesting maybe like in the text of the plan that we talk about airport, or are you thinking we might modify the drawing?
Well, maybe, and again, I don't know which is...
Either one, it can
What's
be done.
easier to do, but it says sledding hill, and I just thought it would be, I guess it would be helpful to remind people that they're using this all year round for workout, or, I don't know a catchphrase. I'm a-
Exercise circuit.
Yeah, so
Exercise
it's-
circuit.
Yeah, it's for use for fitness and.
Yeah, fitness, there you go. I'm a couch potato, so those words don't come easy to me. But I think that also shows that it's an asset throughout the year, not just in the winter season.
I will take a look at the text, and, we can always modify the drawing just to add a different notation, so we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I have a question about the football practice field. Now, that is not RAC property, but is it correct to be in this plan?
Well,
What kind of a
Leased by
thing?
the-
Leased
It's leased by
recreation
the
area.
township, so it is part of the park.
Right.
Yep, and it's, and you, under the lease, I imagine you have the ability to develop those fields, so it's certainly appropriate to
Okay.
talk about them there. I don't know that, I'm not sure if that acreage, the leased acreage is included in the inventory or not, but maybe Tim and I will verify that, make sure that it is or isn't if it
Yep.
should be, so.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioners? Ethel?
Can we back up to the farm, please?
Of course.
The farm?
According to this new map?
Do you want a copy of that up?
Yeah, you want to,
Yeah, I know.
he prints them out,
But
but
I'm looking at.
did they all get a
Did I
copy?
No, that's not-
understand what
this
the
has never
Public Garden is going to be at 24 because on here that says green space?
Excuse me. No. That plan that you got is exactly the one that's on TV.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
It's not?
That's from the subcommittee meeting Helena held, and then,
Oh, yeah, I see
and it was
the
sent out to
thing.
you
That's
guys.
the old one?
Right.
That's the older one then.
This is the new one? This is the old one?
This is the old one? Okay, because that's what I was told, that was the right one.
Newer one
No,
from
you're right,
subcommittee
that's
you
right.
haven't here.
That's
Right.
This was
I'm totally.
So the one on the screen is not correct.
That is the correct one for the public hearing, but then the subcommittee met
Right.
and
This is
had
the updated one.
Right.
Yes.
Not officially ever looked at by the board, it was passed on to you
Right.
after the meeting as an update in emails.
But Sharon just told us that the one that she showed us is the plan that's in the plan.
The one that's in the plan
The one that you have on screen,
is not in the plan,
Right, this is
Okay.
updated from the version in your.
that you have in your plan.
Okay, so what's this one?
Three plans.
That's an alternate.
Well,
That's an alternate.
at the last meeting, you said Helena will be holding the subcommittee, we could bring back any updates.
Right.
That was emailed to the commission and brought tonight as an update for tonight's meeting.
Right, but we're using the word alternate, right? Or
Alternate, right.
Okay.
Oh, this is an alternate?
It's an
An
alternate.
alternate.
That's correct.
The correct word.
yeah, because it doesn't represent the status of the site as of the last meeting. What's on the screen represents the status of the
Correct,
site
yes.
as of the last meeting of the commission.
CRC, right?
And from the minutes and the meeting last time, we had discussed that Helena would be holding the meeting
The
for
subcommittee one is the alternate.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
That is-
February,
So
whatever.
does that make sense? Ethel?
So in very simple terms, if everyone can look at both drawings, okay, I know it's confusing. Very simple terms. See the one with the item number 24 that was brought up as a question, where the community garden is? That's the plan. Okay, that's the master plan.
And they moved it across the...
No,
They took it out.
That's the one that's in the big, thick master plan. Right.
no.
That's the one that.
This one will be.
This one
Okay,
will be.
will be.
That's what
The one with the
proposed.
community garden will replace the one that you have in your current book. Okay?
No,
Yes.
That's where we left it. That is where we left it.
that's not what he's saying. The community
Oh, it's-
garden is not in this document.
That's the alternate.
Right.
Yes. I think, excuse me,
got two.
in my opinion, both of these should be in the plan, okay?
Oh, you can add.
You have a master plan and you have an alternate.
So one with or without the community garden, basically, can we say that then, a
Yes.
plan?
That's right.
Okay, so we're going to have two plans, one with a community garden and one without, so an alternate plans.
Now, keeping in mind, as Walt said earlier, flexibility, okay? So basically, what the plan is showing you is a community voice showing that they would like to have community gardens there. The other is a subcommittee voice that basically took the plan that you have on your screen and modified it, and we modified it to meet the needs of that committee, that subcommittee that met last Tuesday.
Alina held the meeting. Maybe she wants to summarize.
Can I say?
Yeah, well, there were some definite reasons why they
yeah.
didn't like the location of the community garden, right?
A
Bring
couple
it.
of reasons, right. We had representatives from everybody there. We tried to.
Okay.
We
Speak into the microphone, please.
Is the community garden there?
we talked to, tried to have representatives from each area, specific area, unique area on the farm.
Okay.
We are tabling, at this moment with the garden representative, we're right now not putting exactly where we want to put the community gardens. We have to see how big of an interest it is, where the best location is, not just stick it somewhere, but have their input on where to put it. And the idea is to have it so, we listen to what people said about whether it's, how it's going to look when you drive into the farm, where it should be, how big is it going to be with room to grow. So the idea, we'll put it somewhere where it's ideal with the soil, without trying not to affect anything else, but with room to grow.
And sunlight.
That's-
Wasn't sunlight was a big one too, right?
They're big. Well, mostly they were concerned about deer, which is the whole island.
Okay.
So we didn't. We took out the community gardens, and I talked to the animal shelter group, and the dog park is nice, and it would be a shame to rip out the current dog park. She said there's a need for a large dog park and a small dog park, so instead the current park is beautiful when you drive in. You see, they did a nice job. Why not just add a small dog park instead of tearing down the large dog park?
Okay.
So at that time, we were saying leave the large dog park.
Okay.
So you're really not doing anything when you drive in right now.
Correct.
But that we heard some comments about the parking lot that you had on the far side of the outdoor riding arena or the exhibition arena.
Yes.
Okay, that the idea of the farm is not to drive in and, a couple of objections was to drive in and see parking. Nobody, that takes away from the farm.
Correct.
Just see parking, and the green space people, nobody wants to pave over anything green. So, we talked about it, and a couple ideas is try to take a parking lot and hide it. So you don't drive in. It needs to be also placed strategically so that if you have an event that right now doesn't have parking, which is, say, something around the pond, those people can park and walk without walking where these kids are with the horses. I mean, you
Right.
have a real bottleneck right by the horses where
Understood.
there's a lot of traffic. So this new concept, you got a little square. We were hoping, Tim was talking about having the parking lot almost mimic the other one along the dog shelter.
Long.
Yes, long. So it would
But Mark
also...
added to that when I gave it to him, based on that accessibility and getting it through the state requirements.
Yeah, and I think also there's an existing shelter there.
Right,
the
I know
structure.
right, but
Yeah.
it would be almost along the shelter, so it's where it is, only long-wise, not square. One of the reasons is, if you're going to have something around the people that park to go to the herb garden, do you know where that is? Next,
do.
Around, okay, those people have to drive by where these people go with their horses, and these kids and the horses, they have to drive and they park there and drive through. If they can actually go drive in, go to the left, park there, and you can get out behind the shelter and access it that way, you're creating a traffic flow this way instead of this bottleneck where a lot of those people are
But you're also asking people to
walk.
walk a great distance, particularly if they're going to be picnicking there, then you're asking people to walk a greater distance, conceivably, to the picnic area. Okay, that was the reason that we had parking on the east side of
Makes
the
sense.
indoor arena, which in the revised plan that you have, the alternate, we're calling it,
Right.
We've reduced that to about 3 spaces.
Okay.
It was about 16 spaces. So we've reduced that to about 3 spaces, basically to accommodate the path that's right to the east of it that goes over to where the herb garden is. Does everybody see that?
Well, what we were talking about, all I'm talking about is what was at the subcommittee.
Okay.
It's fairly inappropriate to put a bunch of, these, for every child that rides, there's people that want to watch, you know what I
Sure.
mean? And there's a lot of traffic in these young kids with horses and that we're trying to discourage some of this car traffic, auto traffic, basically between the 2 barns.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So that part of the parking's gone. Those people that access those gardens, even the people when you have those parties at around by the pond, around by the pond, they all park and then they walk right past, which is kind of nice, but it's a traffic flow problem. If they can park their stuff somewhere else and access it that way, and a lot of them, it's just a way to pull in, unload, pull back, without going around in front of those kids.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Well, with your subcommittee, I mean, we're going to get a lot more direction in defining of this, because this is a conceptual plan. I think
Right.
we got a good thing here of the alternate and the other one
Right.
here.
Right.
So we'll be able to decide, maybe take a little bit of both, so.
And you can,
Right.
you can always, even as we said earlier, even if you have the community garden on the master plan,
Right.
and if it doesn't go
Right.
there, or if it's totally relocated and the whole park gets
Right.
flipped on its end and
right.
turned over, you're still okay. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to keep both
To
because
keep a community garden.
Right,
for
to keep
grants.
it in the
Right.
plan
Right.
in case
That-
you ever
that's
want to
a-
implement
absolutely.
it.
For grants,
But
right.
it does,
That's the
as
right
Mark
word.
said, say, hey, this is pretty, pretty pie in the sky. We think, if we could start all over, we might reorganize some things, but maybe this is a bit more realistic.
But,
than what
well,
we
like
actually
Uda was saying, when people look at this and they see things, that it bothers them. First off, we put a whole bunch of money into a dog park, and now we want to rip it up.
Right.
No, yeah. I mean,
so-
again, all we were
Right.
trying to do was respond to the I think it was October 28th meeting. Yeah, October
Right.
the 28th.
Yeah, and that's everyone's ideas, and he tried to put
Right.
everyone's
Right.
ideas on a plan, so this is what
But I
we
get the
get.
concept that you need to have a picture of community gardens so we can get more grant money.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether we put the gardens in.
Well, that and maybe the public opinion changes.
Well, we're not saying no community gardens.
I understand.
We're
Right.
just saying,
Right.
why
That's all
take
we-
something away and, yeah.
Understood.
There's plenty of room there where we can put in gardens without
Understand.
taking something away from somebody else.
Totally agree.
Can we go to Water's Edge?
No, hold on one second.
we get
No,
some here?
I really applaud the subcommittee, what it did. I just would like somehow the alternate plan, maybe to make a reference that there were comments made for a community garden. There certainly was a kind of, I don't want to say demand, because it wasn't a demand, but somehow, if we don't have a place for it on this map, that we somehow refer to it that it was proposed.
Oh, we're going to
That's
have
in
it.
the, that'll be
both
in the
of them.
text of
That's
the
in the
plan.
text.
It's in the text of the
Okay.
plan, certainly that a
Right.
The
community
comments.
garden was
Okay.
asked for, and I think it's actually in the list of improvements to the farm in the
Okay.
plan. So, but we'll
Okay.
make sure it is at least mentioned, but I'm confident it is, so.
And you're also going to have both of these drawings.
In the
Okay.
In the plan.
I mean, I can understand all the points made about taking out the existing large dog park area.
Yep.
Just in defense of why it was chosen as a potential, and this was by the person who proposed moving the dog park, actually, was because that area was already fenced in and
Right.
would protect against rabbits and deer.
Got it.
So the existing structures wouldn't go to waste and wouldn't have to be recreated elsewhere.
Yeah, makes
But-
sense.
But it makes sense if the demand is there. Obviously, every time I go by there are people in that dog park.
Yeah.
So I can
Well,
certainly see why we would want to keep it there.
Yeah, and it makes sense to grow a new use slowly.
That's
as
right.
the public
That's
becomes
right.
Right.
interested.
And
All right.
especially because we don't know.
Right.
Water's Edge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And well said, Helena.
Ice rink. Is there an ice rink?
It's the
Indoor,
river.
huh?
The river. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. No.
Hey, I've been fighting with my kids to stay off the river. Don't say that.
Yeah, you're
the
on
swimming pool.
television.
Oh, that's really, shoot, I forgot I'm on TV.
So we've had a discussion about that, about putting it between the basketball and the volleyball, correct? Weren't we going to put the ice rink, indoor rink in there, or was that, we're not?
Are you talking about the inline?
Inline skating rink, yes.
Inline skating.
Combination.
Yeah, the combo.
I'm not, again, we don't know how big that is, and it can be of a size, but I'm not convinced that that's the right spot. And a couple of reasons. There's some grading issues there, significant grading issues there. And there's also the quality of play between the three different uses, which are all going to be heavily used during probably the same period of time. Granted, from a recreation standpoint, if it's a recreation programming, that can be remedied. But if it's come and play, I think that you're going to have a lot of interruption of play between the three different sports that would be adjacent to one another. I just don't think we have enough elbow room there for an inline skating. And I know Uta had mentioned in a previous meeting, the thing can be can start out small and grow, or can stay small and grow someplace else. It doesn't have to be a regulation size, which is essentially a hockey, a sheet of ice is a regulation inline hockey. But if that wants to be programmatically, if that wants to be brought into the recreation programming as a tool for maybe even some revenue generation, to build something that is going to be a competitive layout, I think would be beneficial.
Well, just for your information, though, and there is an existing ice rink on the basketball court right now.
Okay.
So obviously, basketball and ice skating don't occur at the same time. And so maybe the plan can reflect that at least we are using one site for two different things in 2 seasons to show that we are accommodating an event or a sport or a activity in the season when the other site is off.
Okay.
And
Well said.
so, it says here, existing volleyball and basketball court, just kind of like we did with the sled hill.
Yeah.
Indicate that there's an alternate use depending on the seasons, so that we can
We could
show.
just say we could say seasonal ice rink.
Yeah.
Something
I mean,
like
we
that.
are squeezing every last little bit of recreational
that's
potential
wonderful.
out of our sites.
I think that's great.
And I think that might impress the granting, I don't know. But
All right, any
We'll do
other
that.
commissioner
We've got a
I don't want you
questions?
to be wasteful, that's for sure.
That's a good idea.
well, I think I'm in Mrs.
Did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
All right, well, let's bring it out to the public. Let's invite the public up here for any comments or questions. Anybody from the public have any comments or questions? Just come on up, state your name and address, please.
Okay, Paige Miller, 29900 Bayview Drive. I have reviewed the current plan that was on the website, and Tim was good enough to email me one of the new maps this morning. And I also looked at the 2005 to 2010 five-year plan and compared the two. And I looked at the master plan summary from the year 2000 in order to get a feel for what the long-term goals and objectives were for some of these facilities, in particular the farm, which is where my primary interest has been. I think that this was a very big job to get this master plan prepared and done, and I think that Tim Rooney deserves a gold medal and a raise for putting up with all of these people.
It's okay.
And
It's a job.
over all of this period of time, I think he did a great job on it, and he's been very kind to accommodate my questions along the way. As I said, my primary interest has been in the farm. My interest there stems from the fact that my daughter Lauren trains there with the Luton Riding Academy, and we board a horse at the farm. Over the 5 years or so that we've been involved there, our family has come to really love both the equestrian center and the farm as a whole. Our daughter, along with a whole bunch of other island residents, has spent hours and hours at that equestrian center. It's a nurturing, positive environment. She has learned the value of hard work, discipline, and teamwork, all the while having fun with her friends, both equine and human. And she's benefited from all the other things that are at the farm. She spends almost every day in the summer. She's been to the pond to catch frogs. She goes over to that little herb garden, and the ladies there have been really kind and taught the girls about the plants. They let them pick the onions, and yes, she's come home with onion breath on occasion. And then we bebop over to the animal shelter when it opens at 2 o'clock. And Laura is always very nice to them. They come and play with the cats. And then when Rob's little daughter comes later in the afternoon, they take her over to the park and they play with Lakely over there. It's really a tremendous, wonderful place where I think all kinds of people can appreciate and enjoy it. I see people there at all times of the year, petting the horses, walking through the farms, taking advantage of all the things that we have there. And I think it's really, really great. With respect to all of the proposed changes that I see with respect to the farm, I do like the idea of making room for the little dogs. I can see that there's an issue there, and I can see that the dog park is well used. And I like the idea of the gardens. I think there's a lot of issues and things that need to get worked out, which I think the groups recognize, and that's something that can be done along the way. But the thing that has really stood out to me as I have spent time looking at this over the last few months, and it's been kind of a process because things have slowly become available to the public, is there are very significant proposed changes in the plan regarding a lot of the aspects that affect the equestrian center. And these are especially apparent when I compare the current map with the map from the 2005 to 2010 plan. And what I'm referring to is, besides the obvious, repurposing, if you will, of, what I eyeball is maybe 30% of the existing horse paddock space, we've also added the addition of a pen/petting zoo. We have added the addition of a farm equipment display area in an area which is currently used for foot and vehicle traffic between the barns. There is an addition there is a bunch of bushes and things which block off the main entrance to the red barn with shrubs, which would make it impossible to move horses and people between the barns. And it's interesting to me when I see all of this, and I realize this wasn't in the plan from 5 years ago, somebody really some group put a lot of thought and effort into these ideas and into getting them put into the master plan. And I don't know who this is. It's never been discussed at any of the meetings that I have attended as to why these things were put in here. When we have asked about, back in October, what are the plans for the Red Barn? There's rumors around. We were told, we aren't discussing the Red Barn. That's off limits. That's a lease discussion. And when we asked about, what's with this petting zoo? We were told, well, we don't know what that is. There's all kinds of issues with that. I don't know, that's just in there, don't worry about it. And I'm still uneasy about some of the answers that we've received about what are these plans for and what does somebody or some group really have in mind for this whole area regarding the equestrian plans. I think that the public and the people that have asked the questions and the people that are looking at what our overall 5-year plan is, we should know the whole story. And I'd like, somebody to tell me why we have a petting zoo on here and why the animal shelter is now being called an animal hospital. Is there somebody changing it from a shelter to a hospital? I don't know. It wasn't.
All right, may I
the
respond?
last one.
All right, let me respond to you.
Okay.
When we had our public input, it's not one group, it's not one individual, it's not a forces together, it's the public in general with their ideas of what they want to see, of what they want. It could be one person that said that they wanted to see a petting zoo there. We have to record that thought.
Recording is fine, but putting it on a map as a plan is different.
Excuse me, Paige, okay? Every idea that the community, that's what community input is. It could be, the individual over here's idea, someone over here, whatever group it is, we have to compile it in here. These are what the community input said in those input sessions. Those were the ideas that when we asked for it, this is what we got. When we get those ideas, we try to put them in a plan. Once again, conceptual drawing page. Conceptual drawing. It's where those seeds, where those ideas go from here now. If the petting zoo, that little seed starts flourishing, then yes, because that means the public demands it. But if not, it's never going to happen. It's simple as that. It's where the public wants us to do with their property. I cannot, if this commission cannot, if someone has an idea of what they have for Water's Edge, the farm, or the airport, we can't just ignore it and pretend like we never heard it. LSL has every thought from every individual or group, and it's probably in the plan. Am I wrong with that? It's in the plan.
Yeah, I understand that you have to listen to all of everybody's ideas, and we should write down what all these ideas are. I would expect that this group's goals and objectives would be to sort through those, because you can't do everything for everybody. There's got to be what's best for the most number of people, what's the best, in terms of where our resources and our money and all of that. But, just because somebody says, I want, a bike path running across my street because I don't like my street, doesn't mean you're going to put it on a plan. You're going to put it on the plan if it makes sense, and if that's really what this group thinks is a great idea.
Okay, no, what it would be, it's whether we do it would be making sense. We wouldn't do it unless it made sense. But it's everybody's thoughts, everybody's idea. There wasn't 50 people that said community garden. Right. There was just a couple people. You know what I mean? Or the dog park. We didn't have, half the island. Sure, the dog park has a lot of activity there, but we didn't have one resident after another saying they wanted large and small dog parks. We've had you got to take everybody's idea. We try to make it into a plan, but it's not. I guarantee it's not going to all happen on here.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry. First of all, I think we should kind of all bring it down a little bit, because you were here when Sharon was telling us and Mark was telling us why it's a conceptual plan. And I told you, right, people take these plans literally. In our Water's Edge plan, we have a parking area that I asked, why is it there? And it's not there because we're going to put it there. There were board members that objected to having parking there, but we were counseled that it's good for us to plan for it just in case. So all of these things that are in this plan, conceptual and otherwise, are to represent ideas that the community has for future projects. None of these things will happen because they are in the plan. A lot of these things that, if you looked at the plans from the past, some of those things never happened. We had camping sites in the past. We had, here again, we have paved walkways. They're still not in, because every time we start to discuss them, all the objections tend to override.
Trails.
You're very loyal to the equestrian center, but it is a private facility leasing public land. The public will always have priority over the private enterprise. Now, the things that are in this plan that may impact that facility, I think everyone was right to tell you those are lease issues, and those are dependent on our lease negotiations. Yeah. But if we don't have them in the plan, we restrict ourselves from moving forward with getting grant opportunities and so forth. So we have to live with this little bit of discomfort while things are in motion. And it's not that there is a conspiracy or little groups of people trying to knock down the Lutons or anybody else. It's that this plan needs to accommodate as many different ideas as it can.
I understand that. The reason it popped up as a surprise to me was that when I first looked at the plan that was on the website in draft number 2, there was a listing of items that were discussed at the public forums or the focus group meetings. And they were listed things like, let's, preserve the integrity of the buildings. Let's, improve the trails. Let's do this. Nowhere on that listing of items was there, let's have a petting zoo, or let's, put bushes in front of, or have I didn't see it on that list. Why don't we have farm equipment blocking the barns? So it just, when we finally got the maps available come December, it was a surprise. I didn't know where it came from. It's like it came out of nowhere. So anyway, and I'm not trying to, accuse anybody of anything. I was uncomfortable that, and I also want to make a big point that even though if we're leasing things to a private business, that we're doing it because it's for the public benefit. And I am a citizen, and there's a whole lot of other citizens that get a huge benefit out of that equestrian facility. And we need to recognize that facility isn't there just to benefit Rob Luton. It's benefiting me, and it's benefiting
Absolutely.
a whole lot of other people, and I'm a citizen too.
Absolutely.
And so, that needs to be understood, as well as, the overflowing clinic that our club had at the barn this weekend. And those were citizens and people from all over the place. And people benefit from that facility. It's not just a private business benefiting off of the public good. And I completely understand and agree with the philosophy that this is a publicly owned piece of property. My taxes paid for it just like everybody else's, and I think it needs to be available to a wide variety of people. I think there's room for all kinds and all ages and groups of people to be there. I also believe that, with improved communications between all the users of the farm property and with this commission as a whole, that, we can all work together to make this whole farm property better and available to more people, for everybody. So,
Rest assured, Paige, with the subcommittee with Helena and stuff like this, anyone who has interest in that property, their voice is going to be heard for anything that's done, whether it's on this plan or not. Rest assured. Okay.
Well, what was? Well, I don't know. I don't understand how some of those things got there at all.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think, too, what I appreciate you're talking about the public-private aspect, and yes, we all benefit from the horse center being there. But we also find that once a private interest is located and doing well, there's a tendency to get possessive. And this discussion actually kind of reflects that. You're very protective of the land and what Rob and his company are leasing now versus, we're feeling pressures from the public to use more of the facility than they have access to right now.
Right.
So at some point...
No, and Rob came right out and said at that October meeting that it's not going to harm his business to lose some of those paddocks, and we're not arguing about that at all.
But I do get this undercurrent that somehow we're trying to harm his business, and we are not trying to do that.
Well, let me tell you what. As long as the number of horses available to the facility doesn't change, I'm okay with whatever you do.
But like I said, rest assured,
the reason why is that if once you lower the number of horses available, you lower the chances of the business being viable. And so long as Rob says he can still handle the number of horses he has there, I think we can all work together.
We're getting off topic from the master plan. We got to bring it back to the master plan.
So that's basically where we're at. And that's it.
All right, cool. Thank you, Paige. Any other public comment? Maybe we could put the sharing the farm on overhead.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Mr. Chair, which one do you want?
The one that's there, whatever
And I
one,
will
so
say
we
that
get a basic idea.
I will say that the sentiments in the plan really were from the public comments we received, and I wouldn't say that I'm the one that effectively sort of steered the writing of the plan, that kind of stuff. So we didn't really cater to any one particular person. So I just want to clear that up because it wasn't because of one specific comment, but a general sentiment we heard at the meeting. So I just want to clear that up.
Hi,
How you doing?
Sandra Bondar, 20594 Canal Drive. And I'm looking at the revised plan. I like the way this parking lot is much better than that one. If you notice, the parking lot is butting almost right up to that outside arena, and that becomes a safety issue. If you're out there working on horses and you
Sandy,
have cars...
can you hold on one second? Tim's going to bring that map up on the overhead
Oh, okay.
so that you can refer to it too on camera.
Bondar.
Refer to this one here because it shows up on the screen. If you're pointing at something, then people can know what it's
Oh, okay.
So I'm sorry if I interrupted your flow. I think it'll just make it easier for anyone watching to follow what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yep, that's focused pretty good.
Move it over a little bit.
Okay, here we go.
And we have a handheld mic too,
Okay. The other plan that you had the parking lot going right up to that outside arena, which would be a safety concern. I, too, have my horse boarded at the farm with Luton Riding Academy, and she's a youngster, and things happen. And if you have that parking lot going right up to that arena, people are going to slam doors or whatnot, and the potential to have a horse spooked is there. As for the Victory Gardens, somebody recommended why not either have them here at the township, because you guys handle your deer out here fairly well. Another place is, how about right there? You know how gardens start to look kind of crummy at the end? They're in the far corner, no one will really see it. They can park their cars next to that parking lot. You got your tools and everything. You already have a water source from the little mini dog park, and you can go right there. So that was it, but I like the revised plan better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what conceptual drawing.
Well, could I
We'll
add
be moving on.
something?
What? Pardon me?
Mr. Chair.
Could I add something about the different projects that occur? Very early on, UDA was as our township liaison. We taking over the farm and starting to, improve facilities and things like that. What was established was anybody that wants to take on a project there has to go through an application process, whether it's the rose garden, butterfly garden, the fruity garden, the herb garden. All those groups appeared before the rec commission and went through a process. And that's one thing that I wanted to update that first subcommittee meeting night and wasn't able to show the subcommittee the form. So
we have a maintenance thing. You got to take care of it.
there's a qualifier after all these. Yes.
Yeah.
Just so you know that's kind of how it's controlled to the commission. Then it's in a public meeting again, and the group comes before the commission. They bring their detail, they discuss it, and I think probably people have seen.
Okay,
the-
Because a lot of groups want to do something, then they just want the township to take over responsibility
Right.
for it, stuff like that.
And if
Right
you're going
now
to plant a tree, you have to commit
Right.
3 years.
Right.
So, and this will alleviate Paige's concern and Sandy's concern, well, not Sandy's so much, but that these plans do, before any shovel hits the dirt, they have to go through a process, whether or not they're in the master plan. They come to the commission, they have to, some of them have to go through the township board to get approval. And I just, before you start, Rob, Sandy, you saw me laughing with Tim, and it was not to show disrespect. When you talked about the garden in that back corner, that was the original site that we came up with for that. And so, I got poo-pooed on that one, and so you came back, and so he looked at me, and it's like, okay, so that's what we were laughing about.
Having it right up front is not a good idea,
Right.
because even her gardens look pale by the end of the summer.
Okay.
They're looking rattier. So if you have it in the corner, nobody sees it.
That's what
Right.
we talked out at the
Well, yeah,
subcommittee.
and I mean, Helena gave a good explanation of all that, and again, things move in circles, ideas get run, all around, and that's the give and take of these things, and that's why it's important to have these discussions. But again, we just thought it was very funny, because that's really where, and I think Leah was even there when we talked about it, so
Which is actually a good idea.
that's how we end up with the best possible alternatives for everybody.
All right, thank you.
Rob Luton.
How you doing, Rob?
Good. One thing about what you were just talking about, I know that there was manure in that area for quite a while, and that's got to be some of the best black dirt on the farm. So I know it sounds funny, but I know a lot about farming, right? So if you're going to grow something, grow where the best dirt is. I have a question about,
Oh, no, it says horse manure.
have you ever grown anything? Do you have a garden or anything? No? No.
I have
So-
two
so farmers use-
certified brown thumbs.
Yeah, there you go.
But my mom,
Right.
you know.
Farmers use horse manure a
Don't
lot of
go
the
up
time for that
against
sort
my
of
mom.
thing. My question is, one of the things that we proposed quite a couple of these 5-year plans was to pave all the way around the farm. Is that, I didn't see that on here at all. Is it still going to be a rock path? Has anyone ever been ever out there when one of the handicapped kids walks across those rocks, or we try to wheel a wheelchair across? More importantly than anything, there's a lot of handicapped people that come out there now with the riding program, and they're not boarders per se, they're not boarders, but there's quite a few handicapped people. I have a lot of elderly people that come out now.
Well, there is a
come out
path
there.
going all the way around.
Hold
I
on now.
just don't know if it's paved.
Hang on one second. Let's finish my thought. All the way around the farm, if it was paved, it would be easier for everyone to get around, including, we get people that are coming up in wheelchairs, and we get people that are coming up with canes, and walking on those rocks. Tim will tell you, they're hard to walk on. It's hard for me to walk on
I do have a file of a proposal that Udo
Yeah.
was part of. We tried to get those in, and
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
knocked down.
Well, couldn't it be on here as one of those maybe plans? Could we put it on as a maybe? Okay, I was looking for blacktop on here, and I just didn't see it, so maybe it's my ignorance, but is there a number that says
Yeah,
that there's
it's
blacktop?
19. It's accessible path system, and
19.
accessible usually means paved or accessible to wheelchairs, right?
Accessible to wheelchairs, yeah, excuse me, Rob, I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Accessibility to wheelchair could be compacted limestone fines, but it needs to be a good, stable, firm surface.
Like a blacktop.
Blacktop is better firm, stable
Right.
surface.
But are we
But
talking
always
about
does
his paving about the barns, or are we just talking about the pathways?
I think he's talking about the
I'm
parking
talking-
lots as
All
well.
activity
Everything
areas.
doesn't, for us,
Okay.
everything doesn't center completely. Everyone thinks the horse people, they just want the farm and, are you there? No, you get up there. Go up there. Go up there. All right, it's my turn. No, what I'm saying is, yeah, I know what you're saying. That's a path around, but what I'm saying is, if you look where we drive in and where the people walk for all the events and everything.
I think it's a great idea.
Oh, look at this. Thank you. Let me give you the mic.
Hey, Rob?
So, hey, yeah, let me finish before you ask questions. So, anyways, I've seen these people walk up with these canes, and I've seen wheelchairs. We have a few boys that walk up now with the double crutches, right? And getting across those rocks, it's horrible. The older people, and these aren't people that are boarding horses. So I know all those boarders. These are people that are island residents, taxpayers, that just come into the barn to see them. So I'd like to make it easier for them. I'm not making any money off these people, but I sure as hell would like to see them walk in and have a little more easy time getting in. So that's what I'm saying. If we could put that on there as maybe a wish plan or a proposal, right? You got to smile a little bit.
Wasn't there another one too about you wanted to put up a gate to prevent flow of traffic in
One
that
thing,
area too?
not even something, when people come around that corner of the barn, I know there's a proposed parking lot between the two barns. When they come around that
Show
corner
us on the overhead, hon. There.
on the overhead,
Yeah.
so just do like this.
There you go. Now we can all see.
So
what
when
we're
people come around this corner here, right, look where the barn is. You turn the corner to go to the herb garden. You've done it before. So if you go around that corner, if you go slow, it's fine. But what happens is kids are constantly in and out of the barn. They're walking with horses. And most of those people have no idea that 20 miles an hour going around that corner is way too fast. We had a lady slam on the brakes a year and a half ago. And
Mark, I think
slide.
it's about the other corner.
It's the barn. When you come down and you make that first right coming around the
Right there, that corner right
front of
there.
the barn, right?
Okay.
Front of the barn.
It's like a blind spot going
There's a
on.
doorway right there as they turn, and it's a blind spot. And most people never touch the brakes; they just come around the corner. So if there's anything like a stop sign or anything, they just forget about it, and we remind them, and...
Because I know that
And it's
was
nothing
the
to do
concern.
with the equestrian program or the equestrian horses. It's to do with the people that, taxpayers, like you say a lot, are walking in and out of the barn, and we sure as heck wouldn't want a little kid getting hit, and it's come close a bunch of times. I mean, it's really close. So myself and a few of the younger kids have come close a few times, and they always go, and they slam on the brakes and slide, because it's gravel too. So that was the area I was saying, all the way around there, around the barn, even up into Laura's area, which, doesn't really affect me, but I wouldn't mind seeing some blacktop go through there, because I think that would be easier for the animal shelter people too. So if that was on this as a wish list, I'd like to see that on there, as opposed to just like whatever they got it written
Well,
as.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Rob, basically, blacktop would be a plan issue, but I think if you're concerned about traffic flow and stuff, that's something we should look into right away.
Well, we've been saying this for,
We've been
this
talking
is
about
5
blind
years that
spot
we've been,
for a while.
this has been,
Well, then we
I
better
call it
get
a
off
major
our
concern.
horses' hinds and
Look at there.
get some signage up.
Yeah, it's just, we just don't want a kid getting hit or
No.
a person getting hit. But, and it gets talked about a lot, and just to touch on it real quick, the people that come in here aren't just the boarders. There's not that many boarders. There's a lot of people right now. I think we have over 100 in our little equine group here of people that don't own horses. Maybe some of them don't even take riding lessons, but they come out there quite a bit. So I think we're hitting on the community more now, and I think instead of just saying it's all those boarders, I think now you're starting to see quite a bit of people from the community coming in and enjoying this place where they didn't get to in the past. They just didn't feel welcome. And we've been trying to change that for a long time, and this group is the best thing that ever happened. I was always trying to do it myself.
It's been good.
One person can't do it. One person, I can say hi to everybody that walks in there and take them through, but if I have 100 people doing it, I think that'll make this place quite a bit more active. And let's face it, people come to this farm to look at horses running the paddocks and come through the barn, show their kids. It's a free petting zoo. They can come and pet every horse there. So as many dog parks as you put in there, that's great, and all the different things, but let's not forget the mainstay of this whole facility is to be able to go to a farm and see horses out there. And I think that's important. So never discount the horse people or the people that go out there just to look at horses.
You won't let us.
I would never let you do that.
We're not trying to discount.
One of the things, no.
Master plan.
Master plan.
Yeah,
Lease negotiations are next week.
So, and I'm not negotiating. What I'm trying to do is just give you, I've been there a long time, so I'm there every day, and I'm there more hours than I think anyone else other than Tim. Because Tim gets on that, Tim gets over there a lot, so I see Tim a lot. But I've seen quite a bit of this farm for a long time. I've seen what works. I've been there when it didn't work, and it shut down. And then I came and ran the place and made it go well. And so we're turning this into something, and I'd like to keep doing that because I put a lot of sweat and tears into this place. And it's not just about the horses. I love the whole farm. And I think most of my people that follow us love the whole farm, too. So with all these, maybe, yeah, no doubt, right? So with all these things.
Anything that happens at the farm,
right?
You have a vested interest in there. Your input's going to be there.
And just because we own a business there, even if I didn't own a business there, I'd still want to go there and enjoy myself. So that business is helping the place out, I think, because you guys aren't in the red anymore. We pulled it out of the red when we came in. It was losing a lot of money, and Tim will back that up, I think.
Well, I think we have a record. How long have you been here now?
Yes, 7 years. This is our 7th year. So
that's a record, right?
And we've been paying some bills, and we've been keeping that place. Yeah, we made a record. I mean, you could talk to Finley. They just couldn't make it go, and there's been a few others that are there that it was just a lot of work, and it requires a lot of time and a whole lot of hassle. But I think this place could be really special. I just would have liked to seen something on there if we're just wish listing about paving the place, because even for Tim plowing it, it would be easier. The gravel, for some reason, it turns into a skating pond. So they salt it now, but it's still...
Which is fine.
it's
This is
rough.
what we're here for. Last tweaking of the plan,
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
the thoughts out there.
It's all about the plan. It's not just about us boarders or the people that give me money, because I get more people that come in that barn that don't give a cent to it, but they get treated the same as everyone else. So I think it's important that everyone knows that, it's a big part of the farm. The jewel of the farm, and everyone says the jewel, and I love that term, but the jewel of the farm is that these kids can go there, the ones that own horses, that don't own horses, be safe, and it's kind of like a rec area for them that Wyandotte and Trenton, all these existing communities don't have. So it's a draw to the island, and I think I have a few letters out there of people that moved to the island just because of the horse stable. And they wrote nice letters. A lady came from Alaska, lived in West Bloomfield, moved to the island because they had a nice horse facility for her daughter. And there's another one that came from Detroit, and they moved to the island because of the horse facility. So we even brought in some taxpayers. All right,
Sounds good to me.
All right, I'm out of here.
Pay your taxes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I want to
Pay your taxes.
I want to just add or clarify something. I agree with you that something needs to be added, but I'm thinking because of what you said about the handicapped or people that are needy in their transport, whether they're my age or older or whatever,
Right.
getting around
Yeah.
on the rocks and things. What if that were divided into two additions to this plan? One obviously would be the paving, but what if we were just to start out with, because of costs and availability of monies, what if you put that as item B, and item A would be maybe paving a walkway, not paving, but a tar walkway to access what you're trying to access, to start with, which could also then be included into the paving, or the covering of it later.
Yeah, the only thing the DNR is looking for is an accessible surface. We do not have to make that commitment right now to pave or otherwise. It's just an accessible surface. So I think that when the time comes and you want to implement the plan,
okay.
then we address it financially and budget-wise, and we can address that at that time.
That's what you said earlier, and I
Just an
wasn't quite
accessible
catching that.
surface. And
Okay.
universally accessible, I think, is exactly what Rob's talking about, and that's a big buzzword right now with the MDNR and the MDNRE or MDNR, whatever it's called now. But for sure, that needs to be emphasized and will be in the plan, because it's not just handicap, people with disabilities. It's strollers, it's wheelchairs,
Yeah.
it's crutches, it's canes, it's able-bodied people walking over big stones. Those stones, from an ADA standpoint, cannot exceed 1/4 inch. Okay, or it becomes an unaccessible surface. So that really needs to be paid attention to, because I totally agree. Somebody's going to get hurt, or it's an unaccessible surface, and you get a complaint. All we're trying to do with this plan is to make you guys defensible in a court of law. And if you have a plan, an action plan in place that says you're going to address it, that's good enough. You don't need to have a plan of when and if, but a plan that you will.
All right, very good. Anything else, Rob?
Last thing, because we're losing so many paddocks on this side, one of the things about having a farm, I don't know if anybody knows this, is rotating your paddocks. You want to keep your paddocks green. Horses will eat a paddock down, and what you do is you rotate them into another paddock. You let that paddock grow up a little bit, get a little green again, and you can kind of rotate them back and forth. One of my ideas was to cut my paddocks in half if we're going to lose, I don't know, there's 4 or 5.
Conceptual drawing, you're not losing anything.
Right, well,
Okay.
this is conceptual right now,
Right.
so I'm just throwing you guys out
Okay.
some ideas, so
Okay.
I've been brainstorming. So what I thought of is cutting these paddocks in half over here so that we could keep them green, and horses can be on one side or the other, and we keep them green. That will give me a few more paddocks. But I also thought, well, heck, that dog park's right there, and it's pretty big too. We could cut that thing in half. Little dogs don't need a whole giant paddock to run in, so you could even cut that in half and maybe save some money having half side for big dogs, half side for little dogs. I ride by there a lot, and they kind of stay in one area. They don't run the whole thing very often. But,
Right.
you know, if that's still quite a bit of room. If it's enough room for a horse, I know it's enough room for a big dog. I don't know there's many big dogs as big as horses, but I know those little dogs don't need that much room. I got two this big, and they're pretty happy in a 10 by 10 area. So, you know, one of the things I have a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas. I've been doing with animals and farms, and, you know, I've got 30 years in doing this stuff. So, you know, I can help with this too.
Well, like,
Yeah.
come to those subcommittee meetings, come to our meetings,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
try,
Or have some
yeah.
reps.
I
you know.
try, and I send my
know, you
reps.
know, you're very
You know,
busy,
the
stuff like
biggest
this, but
thing
you
about
can
right now-
pass notes, whatever you need.
The
Like,
biggest thing about right now is we're in hard times. So I try to pretty much be at that farm
Right.
keeping it running. So I'm running on half my employees that I really would like to have. So to run out to all these meetings, man, I'd love to get to every one of them. I try to come to the important ones. And I remember that one meeting we had at the farm, they said, oh, the equestrian people are here finally. Well, sometimes, you know, we're busy. We're shooting around with these horses, and we're trying to keep everything going, and I'm trying to get more people to the farm. And I just think that that's important. And sometimes these meetings aren't as important as keeping that business going. Because if I can't keep the business
I
going,
understand.
you ain't going to have horses there. They're sure as heck not have me here, you know. So, and I got a little girl too, so I try to get the important ones, and I think this is an important one, so I figured I'd shoot this out for you, and if they want to change it and put some blacktop in here, man, it'd be safe for everybody and be good. And, you know, I don't know how many of these other things we need or wish list, but I guess 5 years ago I said that was on my wish list. I said, what's the one thing on this farm if you had to think of something? And I said, man, you could blacktop it, because even the horses walking across those rocks, they look like they're dying because the rocks jam up into their feet and they're limping across them, and we got to kind of go slow. So it's hard on them, too. Not that they're the most important thing, but, you know.
Animals are cool.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. All right. Okay, thanks, everybody, and thanks for your
Thanks,
time.
Rob.
Thanks, Uta.
Any other public comment? Come on up, state your name and address, please.
Hi, Cindy Venier, and I'm at, I think it's 25793 3rd Street. I am sitting behind the animal shelter.
Can you spell your last name, please, real quick?
It's Venier, and I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before. I'm very sorry. I might not be very professional either. But I would like to thank Rob and Ricky, for the record, for letting me stay there and learn about horses more than I could ever imagine. And your farm is one of the most exquisite farms and properties in the southeastern part of Michigan. I can tell you that right now. So please, before you do any major construction, consider all possibilities before you do it. So since we left off with the paving, I do agree with that very much. What you can consider is when you pay to re-gravel, you pay to put oil down, and then you pay to have someone plow, and all of the stone, as I pointed to Tim, is now up around all the existing foundations. So maybe the cost of that over the years would outcome the cost of paving everything. So that was my first suggestion. Another suggestion I have is, I know that the Red Barn has been, up in the air. It would be very nice if you would add right here a row of stalls. And I also mentioned to Tim, this area here that is a shed and storage area, there's not much activity there. What you could do is give that to the equestrian center with the new row of stalls, and then that would enclose that equestrian center. And as Rob said, which was my suggestion I wrote down, you could cut his paddocks in half back here and create a whole new paddock section. And also, what has happened in that paddock section is when the trees were cut down, stumps were left there. And as we all know, horses love to run. And from my opinion, the stumps could be, taken out and all the new fencing could be put in. And then he could have also, right here could be a parking area for the equestrian center with handicap capabilities. Sorry, I am very nervous.
Relax. The only issue we have, we cannot enclose or put like packs like that. I think we have a thing with our fire chief having accessibility around that whole building. I think that's a big stickler.
Definitely.
Well, I thought about that. Well, you could still leave the path there then and put your stall, the whole new row of stalls next to the arena here.
You're talking about a new building when you say stalls, right?
No, just add the amount of stalls that you might lose and from the red barn to the white existing
Oh, no,
barn.
we're not losing the red barn.
Well, I'm just saying,
Oh.
if that happens in the future, and you put the petting zoo there and those things that they were talking of, then everything would be enclosed in that area. Does that make sense? Okay.
But we won't lose the red barn. We wouldn't be able to get out of here alive if we got rid of that red barn.
No, I don't want you to ever get rid of the red barn. I love the red barn. No. I'm there every night. Don't worry. Throwing down the hay. No, I don't want you to lose the historical site. I'm saying if the equestrian center is to lose the capability of having stalls, you can always add to the white barn.
Becky, though, just on the plan itself, I'm sorry? Cindy, I'm sorry. The potential for the potential petting zoo, which doesn't really exist, would not replace the red barn at all.
Well, it would replace, but there's paddock area there also. That's going to all stay.
None of that is going to be impacted.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah, the shading should have been a little bit different, but the
Yeah.
information I sent wasn't real clear, so after the subcommittee, I apologize for that. That should be shown as a paddock.
Okay.
Yeah, that is not.
Okay.
On the newer
No wonder
one,
you're so worried, but no, that's not on the.
Yeah, I'm
That's
trying.
not anywhere near.
Okay. Okay. And then also, if you're going to your other areas, I do agree that you should have a large dog park and a small dog park. I think that's a very good idea. But you were also talking about letting the garden people have access to the small garden over here, right here, correct? And going around. But are you going to put a potential garden here?
That's still to be determined. Yeah, that's why we have two different plans for the farm, because really not everyone can't appease everybody yet right now. And
Okay.
they don't feel like they found the perfect spot yet.
Okay.
Hopefully a spot that doesn't impact anything else, for the gardens.
Right.
Okay, so
yeah, the big dog park stays where it's
you
at.
have mentioned.
taken away from somebody else to put in a garden,
Okay.
unless you want to walk on, a bunch of mad people, but,
Okay.
there's no intentions at all to take something away from somebody to put in gardens.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. And one more question is, I hear a lot of talk about you're trying to get grant money just from DNR, but what about trying to help with some of the energy programs that might be an option for there? Wind power, solar panels, or the geothermal heating is also very good for farms and for barns that I've talked to people, and it's very cost effective for barn owners to have the geothermal put in. So that might cut costs for some of the operating expenses that you have for the equestrian program. Well, the dog. And your animal shelter program also.
I know we haven't looked at geothermal, but windmills and solar, we've done all of that stuff. But thank you.
Have you? All right, well, thank you very much. And again, thank you for letting me.
No, you did really well.
All right, thank you.
We're really not as scary as they say we are. Mr. Chair, can I
You
just...
just went on live TV around 40,000 people. Yes, Uta.
What Cindy did say, though, on our map, Part 31, it says, I just underlined it, proposed demonstration rain garden and butterfly garden. Isn't that actually the existing rose garden?
The subcommittee wanted to have those in there after comments.
But where they have number 31, isn't that the Rosie Meyer Rose Garden?
Yes.
I don't know where it is on.
But it's labeled as something else.
It says proposed. You're right. We'll change that.
Okay. I don't want Hannah to read that and say, what?
We'll change that.
So if there is a proposed butterfly garden, we just have to find another spot to put that number.
I can't recall in the subcommittee, one of the members wanted to make sure that those were shown on there.
But wait a minute, it was two different areas, I thought.
Right, but the area.
Okay.
The area that they are showing the
Gotcha.
proposed garden is the existing rose
Right,
garden.
that's the way it should read.
So you don't want to put something new where something already is.
Okay, so just for,
Right?
just for clarification, this is a rose garden, not a butterfly garden?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay?
Butterfly Garden, they've dug it out.
I thought they were going to do a...
Yeah, they've worked on that area already. It's not,
So it's Rosie's Garden / Butterfly Garden.
That's it.
Is that what you're saying?
That's how we have it on the other plan. That's Henna's garden. I believe.
the last one they were,
Right here.
yeah, they came and got that approved, the butterfly.
Right.
And the other one's the existing rose garden.
Existing
They're both
rose-
there.
So she wants it, take away the word
Exactly,
proposed
yeah.
and make it existing.
Right.
Which it says on the other plan.
Okay.
Well, you better put it on this
To
one.
me,
And
it
I'm going to
just
put it on
looked,
this one.
Right, but you not want to omit Rosie's Garden. Rosie Meyer was a
exists.
fantastic lady.
it looked like we got rid
We
of
were attentive
Rosie's
to what the
garden.
subcommittee thought should be on there, and it came across as proposed, but it's
Okay,
there.
Tim, that's okay, it's just we
Yeah, I
don't
know.
want to take Rosie off,
Okay.
Any other public comment?
right?
Right.
Anyone
Yeah,
else? Anyone else? Okay. All
And
right.
Rob, you think you have it hard.
Okay. All right.
I just want to make sure, Rob, you would prefer pavement around it. Is that right?
Blacktop would be good, it's cheaper
Well-
than pavement, but yeah, I think
I
blacktop.
didn't know there was a difference.
Black or the cement?
Well, that's, which one is, so you're not worried too much about shoes and slipping?
No, not
Okay.
at all. We walk across it all the time, and I would rather worry about that and go slow than to.
Okay.
cross it.
I just want to make sure. I agree with the sore feet. Okay.
Heel bruises
All right.
or, stones up in the feet. Or more than that, even when you walk with them, we had a little girl fall 100 feet over on a rock. Yeah, she stopped, and it was great, but I want to
So you're thinking that the pavement's safer, right? Okay.
when you do this, where if you do potholes instead of the big rocks, it's safer, but
Like pea gravel you're talking about or something like that? Whatever.
most people, when they put in a path, like if you go to the Detroit Zoo, they don't use those big rocks. They use pea gravel, and they lay a slag underneath it and do pea gravel so that people aren't tripping or falling.
Isn't there something that turns into concrete?
Driving across it all the
The
time.
limestone.
Your blacktop.
The crushed limestone?
It's wet enough that, you know what I mean, it gets
Gravel compact.
I think it's the crushed limestone. They kind of just do that, right, Mark? I mean, there ain't nothing that just turns into concrete. It's either going to be concrete or not. I mean,
There's a product called slag, which is
Slag.
a derivative of the foundry, metal foundries, which, is not becoming readily available here anymore as it used to be. That does compact, very tight, and creates a nice firm surface. Limestone does the same thing, okay? Use it in a lot of parks. There is, certainly asphalt. Asphalt is $2.50 a square foot. Concrete's $4.50 a square foot, $4 a square foot. The compacted limestone is cheaper yet, and then the slag is about comparable. So the least expensive alternative is going to be a compacted fines stone.
okay.
But
Yes, it doesn't matter about the surface. It's the idea that you want to pave it somehow, some way, or make it
But I mean, if you
ADA
start with
accessible.
something, right, but, okay,
So it's any one of those options that Mark
Okay.
mentioned.
right, I mean, you could pave over what's there. You're getting rid of the larger stones and probably pave over the majority of it because it's been there so long and compacted over
okay,
time.
so you're not going to have the, I worry about the potholes then. and-
You don't have to worry about that
Considering
because what's going to happen when you do when you create the bid documents for the actual construction, they have to bring in there'll be a grading plan and drainage plan. They have to bring in the excess material or additional material to create that level surface and compact it and build it,
Okay.
and they will
Thanks,
come.
All right,
thanks.
thanks. All right, no other public comment? All right, so we went through the master plan, basically. We got through these past months, over a year, going through the input, community input. We went through a lot of tweaking. What draft is this, Sharon? Basically, now this is going to be the third draft?
Third or
Fourth,
third
maybe,
or fourth. We had a couple of revisions,
Right.
and I think technically we were supposed to provide maybe 3 drafts, but it might have been 4. There were little tweaks. There wasn't any major changes.
So just to get everyone understanding, the comments made today, the tweaking, they will be able to happen. So we can make a motion about approving it with those additions, basically? Is that what we're saying then?
Correct.
Okay. So with that being said, does anybody want to offer up a motion for the master plan?
I move that the Groesville Township Community Recreation...
Mike?
I move that the Groesville Township Community Recreation endorses and recommends to the Township Board adoption of the Groesville Township Parks and Recreation Master Plan 2011 to 2015.
Okay, Uta second. Okay, any discussion on this motion? Any questions on this at all from the commissioners? Any comments or?
Well, maybe we should add with the additions tonight.
Yeah, right.
I'll put
As
that in.
discussed or something.
Yeah, I'll add that, Sharon.
Any questions or comments about the proposed motion from the public?
I do have a quick question.
All right, bring that back to the commission. What's your question?
I'm sorry. No, is there,
Nope, no one said nothing.
okay. So with this motion, we're going to bring the master plan to the township board.
Correct.
Are we going to have all the same conversations at the township board meeting that we had tonight, or do we have a sense that the community has reached a comfort level with this plan?
Well, I would hope, because we had listened to the public, but I hope we sufficed your answers. You guys are comfortable.
Kind of a quick input, the little things that you'd want to make a change on, not to get it in, and not animal hospital, animal shelter, not the proposed petting zoo. That's a paddock next to the Red Barn.
Right, but this is all something that Paige brought up that we talked about already, right?
But they're going to, I want them to know.
Right, don't put animal hospital, nobody ever said that.
No, well, I mean, it might have popped up somewhere. Then Rose Garden and Butterfly Garden shown on the map as existing, those little things that they had brought up.
So essentially, the proposed petting zoo, blah, 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 can be part of the text like the community garden proposal is, but not be shown in the map. Right? That's what we're saying. Because now...
So are you going to take the number of the proposed petting zoo pen out?
No, it's going to be a paddock.
Well,
But she's saying she wants to...
Well, it's an existing paddock. I think...
Color it the paddock color and call it a paddock, not a petting zoo.
That's right.
Call that a
Existing
paddock.
paddock.
Shelter.
Existing paddock.
No wonder you guys were all upset. I just noticed that shading issue. It's like, I was looking at 27 as the petting zoo, and because I thought the other one is a paddock, so...
Accessibility, connecting all activity areas.
So you're
Whether it's
going to change
equestrian,
that.
animal house.
See, that's why we proofread.
Okay, do we got to do a roll call vote,
So,
Uta, or do we
I'm
do
sorry, guys.
Can we do a roll call vote, or do we got to do all?
I think we can do an all, the board will probably do a roll call, but...
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. All right.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. It's been great working with you all.
Thank you.
We'll be getting our revisions to Tim, so if anybody wants to take a look at them, we'll coordinate with Tim, and we'll be trying to get those just as soon as we can to you.
All right, so basically now comes down just to...
Township Board.
I have a couple of grammatical things, too, that I told Tim I would get to you. I didn't bring them tonight, but...
All right. Mark.
Just get me, I'll take your card, I'll send them to you. Right?
Mark, what do you
Tim
need?
doesn't
Just quick question, clarification for me, please. The Centennial Farm, there are two plans. One, number 25, is labeled proposed pen and petting zoo, and on the other one, it's the existing paddock. Are we okay with one of the plans saying petting zoo sort of as a wish list item, and the other just remaining as a paddock, or do we want to change them both to paddocks?
Yeah, because I think that doesn't change on either one of those plans. We want...
Right, paddock.
Paddock.
I would leave it as a paddock. If you can do it
Right.
You got it.
somewhere else. Don't take that paddock.
I'm not going to. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else then, Mark?
No,
And
thank
you were
you.
saying the accessibility part? It's
that's-
already in there, that's possible that...
Yeah, and we're going to add some text also
Okay.
within the
Right.
body.
You can add the 19, for something like that, whatever. All right, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Bill, I need a second, please.
Second.
Who was that? Who supported? Okay, Helena. With all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Who made that motion?